Hey everybody, this is Jstar269 here, and welcome to a interesting, different kind of video. I just wanted to discuss something that's been on the top of my head. So, 2020 has been through a lot of events, a lot of different situations, a lot of different things that just happened that have been devastating for a lot of people. And this year has also been a year of a lot of reveals. Now, specifically, I want to talk about reveals for video games, and it's been a very big year, specifically for next-generation consoles. Now, back in December 2019, we had our first game for PlayStation 5 revealed. It was Godfall during the Game Awards. That same event, they revealed the Xbox Series X. Like the look of it and the name. As far as I know, June 2019 was when it was revealed Microsoft was working on a next-gen Xbox. And ever since then, we've been having drip-fed reveals on what are the specs, what are the teraflops, what games will launch with it, what games are coming soon. And for the longest time, we've been just drip-fed this, and it's mainly because, due to COVID-19, we didn't have an E3 for this year, 2020. So we've had a lot of different, reveals happen because there was just no real event to have them where they could all happen at once. Like in 2013, we had the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One reveal a lot of different things, like their price point, the fact they're releasing in the holiday season. The Xbox, I think, showed off their UI. They showed off some games, and the summer was really different. May 2020, we had our first look at third-party games that were going to be made with Xbox Series X in mind. It was a little underwhelming because it was just third-party games, and the biggest reveal of Assassin's Creed Valhalla was mainly just cutscenes, so it wasn't that interesting. But June 2020 was PS5's big time to shine, and it was pretty big. They not only showed off the look of the console, but a lot of big first-party games. It wouldn't be till July that Microsoft would show off like Forza, Fable, was it State of Decay, and of course the big one, Halo Infinite gameplay, which would soon get delayed to early 2021, rather than a launch title for the new Xbox. And then August, I think it's August or September, the Xbox Series S was revealed along with the price, with like a day or two later the Series X price being revealed, mainly because a leak happened and they had to reveal all this detail a week earlier than they originally intended. I read that somewhere. But the Xbox Series X and Series S for the longest time have had their UI shown off. Their user interface, their operating system, OS. And the UI is pretty important. Like, you need to have a good UI with your console if you want gamers to feel like it's a complete console experience. Like, you want to have an easy to use interface to get to the games you've downloaded, get to the games you want to download, or the apps that you want to watch videos on, like Netflix, YouTube, Disney Plus, Spotify. In 2013, as far as I know, when the Xbox One, around the time it got revealed, I think it was June, maybe E3, they showed off like the UI because of the snap menu and their big focus on entertainment and media, which was a big mistake, especially at E3. And then August 2013, Sony revealed the UI for their PlayStation 4 model, which would be released in November, mid-November. And it was almost identical to what would end up being the interface for their console in November. They revealed this in August, 3 months before the console will release. 3 months. It is now October 9th. The PS5 releases on November 12th in the US, Canada, and other regions, and then the 19th everywhere else in the world. October 9th. So like a month and about 2 to 3 days. For reference, I pre-ordered the PlayStation 5 with the disc drive because I'm extremely hyped for the games that are going to release this generation, and I don't really see a need to pre-order or purchase the new Xbox. I have the Xbox One X. It's mainly my Game Pass machine now, and I'm mainly just going to buy games on PS5. I love my PS4 Pro. I'm going to stick with PlayStation for this generation, at least mostly. But the PS5 UI has still not been revealed. The Xbox Series X UI, I think, was revealed like 2, maybe 3 months ago. And the biggest change is that compared to the current Xbox One UI, it's rounded, the fonts are bolder, so I guess they're easier to see. And I guess for the Series X, they're going to be significantly faster and smoother to load things up, like the Microsoft Store, which admittedly was a little annoying because it was never instantaneous for Xbox One X specifically, in my case. But interesting enough, these UI improvements are also coming to Xbox One. And if you have the beta, I have I'm in the preview, I'm in the insider program, so I'm on the beta ring for the Xbox One X UI or OS. So I already have most, if not all, of the new changes that are going to be part of the Xbox Series X and Series S. And yeah, it does feel faster. It's still a hard drive though. They can't just magically upgrade the hard drive to an SSD through software. That's literally impossible for now. But the UI has already been known for like 2 or 3 months, and it's already coming to current gen consoles. Someone at Sony, I forgot their name, said that no pixel of the PS5 UI will be left untouched. They're like hyping up that this UI is insane. Back in mid-June, when they revealed the console, of the look of the PS5 console, they had a tiny glimpse of the UI. A tiny glimpse. It was literally just the boot up, where it says press the home button to sign in or something, kind of like what the PS4 has, where you just, welcome to PlayStation, press the home button to sign in. So, back in mid-June, we had that, and then just cut to a new game. We haven't had anything since. We had a leak a few days ago, I think a week or two at this point, or a week ago. And it showed off a tiny bit of the UI, and the guy that had it had a dev kit PS5, the DualSense controller. So, I don't know. It's weird that they haven't shown off the UI. We're a little over a month away from the console releasing. We had Japanese influencers play through games such as, I think it's called Astro's Playroom or something like that. It's the Astro game that's going to be built in, pre-installed to every PS5, and they also played some of Godfall, which will also be a PS5 console exclusive launch title, which is a different story in and of itself because it's going to cost more on PS5. But that's not the story. They were not allowed to show off the UI. They had the console right then and there. But they were not allowed to look at the UI. They were allowed to play the games and to look at the games and to look at the console like it's right there in front of them. But they were not allowed to actually look at the UI or OS, or if not, there might have been an embargo where they're not allowed to talk about it at all. Same for the new Create menu, which has replaced the Share menu. And as of October 9th, they just recently talked about backwards compatibility with PS4 games. And I think like 10 games that are pretty obscure, except for maybe one, which I've seen talked about, Shadow Complex Remastered. I think I actually played that game on Xbox. Besides those games, as far as we know, all other games will be compatible. They said some games will be might have bugs, and some other select games will actually perform better. Oh, I forgot what they called it. It's kind of like the boost mode in PS4 Pro, where some PS4 games will run better even if they weren't made with the PS4 Pro in mind, like earlier PS4 games that were just launched before the PS4 Pro. And they may have had an unstable frame rate. Now the frame rate is stable. But it's still weird that they're drip feeding this kind of information. We're about a month away. Games are starting to go gold, such as Bugsnax and Spider-Man Miles Morales. Both, well, definitely more so Miles Morales is being hyped up as a promising launch game that's also coming to PS4. Bugsnax, yeah, there's hype for that. Yeah, there is. And then other games like Cyberpunk, which will launch a week after the US launch of the PS5, and will not be made for PS5 at launch. It will run great on PS5 and Series X, as their commercial says, but I think early next year they're gonna have a real next-gen version available. Unfortunate, but whatever the case. The UI not being known at all is really weird. Like, August of the year PS4 launched, around the same time, just 7 years apart, 3 months before the PS4 launched, we had our first look at the UI, and it was a detailed look. I think it was Gamescom? I don't think it was GDC, but it was like a press conference focusing more on the technical aspects, I think, of the PS4, and they showed off the UI and how it works. That hasn't happened yet with the PS5. We have no idea what the UI looks like. They're hyping this up as a huge UI overhaul, which I guess was I guess that's fine. They did say that PS4 tournaments will not go to PS5 because they confirmed that PS4 tournament function will not work for PS5. And they also announced through an email, I think a PR email, that the PlayStation Store will be updated and will no longer sell PS3 and PS Vita content and PSP content through the web store, along with PS4 apps, themes, and avatars. And that if you want to get those still, you'll have to use their respective store. Like if you wanted to get a PS3 game, you will now have to buy it on the PS3 itself. Same for the PS Vita. And I guess for non-games for PS4, it's the same thing. A little weird, but whatever. So they're definitely overhauling a lot of things with PS5. The fact that we haven't seen much for PS5 is really interesting. Like, really. Like, the UI is really important. It's what you look at when you boot up the PS5 every time. I think that leak finally showed how long it takes to boot up the PS5. I think it was close to 20 seconds, if not 20 seconds. Which is a little concerning. It's a little concerning. Mainly because 20 seconds is good. It's definitely better than the PS4 Pro. I have an SSD as the boot drive in my PS4 Pro, and loading times are still definitely longer than 20 seconds because it's just not made for SSDs. It's faster, but not made for it. Or more responsive, rather. And the Xbox Series X boot times, people have been receiving, influencers and reviewers have received the Xbox Series X like a few weeks ago. And they've already been able to test backwards compatibility on Xbox One, Xbox 360, and OG Xbox games. They've been able to boot and show off the UI, the new controller, which is just a better Xbox One controller rather than the redesigned DualSense controller found on the PlayStation 5. They've been able to show off how fast it boots, 10 to 12 seconds. That's extremely good. 10 to 12? That's almost as fast as a modern PC. But in this case, you're booting up you're booting up the console on your TV. It's like by the time your console boots up, well, at the same time of your TV, it's like all ready to go. Unless your TV is that high end where it boots up in like a few seconds. Or your TV has like a rest mode like my TCL TV does. But I don't know, the whole ordeal with the PS5 and Xbox Series X, just not. It's just weird. The Xbox Series X is just showing so much more than the PlayStation 5 right now. Like, you are really starting to understand what you're getting when you boot up your Xbox Series X on day one if you pre-ordered it November 10th. Well, with the PS5, I genuinely have no idea what the console's going to look like I know what it looks like, but I don't know what the UI looks like when it's going to boot up for the first time, besides the fact that there's a PlayStation logo that looks identical to the PlayStation logo that boots up on the PS4 models. So that's weird. Like, the PS4, I guess it's different circumstances due to COVID-19. They haven't been able to show as much, because maybe they're just hard at work making sure that it runs smoothly before they show off their first look at anything. But as far as we know, they've already started making PlayStation 5 consoles that have the UI preloaded onto it. And they know not everyone will be able to install the day one update. Some people might want to just go right in and play a launch game without waiting for a day one update or anything. So the UI on the PS5 needs to be at least somewhat usable. It can't just require. I don't think it's going to require a day one update. That'd be big. That would mean that you're going to need internet to use the PS5. Now, to be completely fair, you're going to need internet if you have the PS5 Digital Edition, because there's just no disk drive. You really will need an internet connection for that console. But the one with the disk drive, the one I pre-ordered, that technically doesn't require one, because you're just playing games through the disk that installs the data. Updates shouldn't be required for games that are pressed on the discs. They should be playable without needing an update. Some games, like, No Man's Sky and almost Final Fantasy VII Remake, were going to really need day one updates. They changed their minds with Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I think there was another game that launched around the time of No Man's Sky that had them delay the game so that they wouldn't need as much of a day one update. But games like that, it's unfortunate. But they're definitely the exception, not the rule. So if internet's required, that would be pretty big. If they're really down to the wire of the UI to the point where they're requiring a day one update, that's going to be really weird. And I think unprecedented, but I don't know. I've never had a console require a day one update as far as I know. And I've had quite a few in the past since updates through internet were even possible. Like, I can't even... every console I've owned has had an update at launch, including the Switch, which was the only other console I ever bought that was at launch. And that had an update, but it wasn't required. And I don't even remember what the update for that really achieved. I understand if the day one update had things like the PlayStation Store or the web browser or things that were for internet. But, like the internet browser, that makes sense because if there's going to be a day one update, whether we like it or not, and if we don't install a day one update, that just means we don't have the internet to download it at the time, which means why have internet features and why put effort into UI features for the internet functions when you could put into other offline functions and then just put all the internet functions in the day one update. That makes sense, I assume. But the PlayStation Store, that makes sense. But we still haven't seen the UI at all, which is really weird. Like, that is weird, right? I don't think we've ever had this situation before. Because literally, we usually see the UI. Okay, actually, we've had this situation before. The Nintendo Switch. I don't think they shut off the UI back in when they revealed the when they had that Switch conference, whatever, in January 2017. I don't think they even showed the UI there, but I might be wrong. That was closer to 4 years ago. I did live stream my reaction to it, though. I'll never forget that because of the game reveals or new game play. But I don't remember if they showed off the UI. I don't think they did. I actually think that we found out the Switch UI through a leak for that, and it was pretty close to the launch of the Switch. So I guess that actually did happen as well. But the console... But the thing is with the Switch UI, it was radically different to the Wii U one, and obviously the 3DS one as well. But the console, the UI was not like insane. It was fast, but it wasn't insane or anything like that. And they didn't really hype up the Switch UI either, outside of it'll be very responsive and very fast, which is fine. You will want that, especially after what happened with the Wii U, especially the Wii U launch OS, which I remember being abysmal. I didn't get the Wii U at launch, but it was definitely in like the news how bad loading times were for the Wii U's OS. And I think the day one update helped, but eventually it took a few more months for another update to really make it fast, which is ironic. It had flash storage. But that's besides the point. The PS5 UI, if they weren't hyping it up so much, I would think that it's just a minor revision to the PS4 UI, which would be fine. The PS4's OS is fine. It's a little cluttered at this point because it's been through 7 years of updates without any real huge overhaul like the Xbox One went through a few times, which it needed. The Xbox One OS at launch was pretty bad. It was Windows 8 for console. Not a good idea. But the PS5, they're hyping it up as something that's going to be a big overhaul, where no pixel will be left untouched. That's pretty ambitious. That's assuming a complete overhaul of the OS, which might make sense. Now, you are going from a hard drive to an SSD. You might as well have an OS that works around that as well. Even though the Xbox One went through so many OS overhauls, that their current one's actually pretty good, even though it's with a hard drive. And the Series X will probably be insanely fast if it's the same OS that will run on Xbox One. But Xbox One, but the PS5, it's just they're hyping it up so much. They hyped up the Series X UI as being faster, more efficient, and nicer to look at, admittedly. PS5, they're just going all out, like they're throwing out the entire PS4 UI and just starting from scratch. We've seen some patents that might hint at the PS5 UI, which looks interesting, and it does look like a rehaul of what the PS4 had, but maybe not an insane one that they're really hyping it up as. But either way, we really should see the UI any day now. It's not something we should wait until the PS5 actually launches. Whether we like it or not, the UI and the OS itself is pretty important. We don't know what the create menu is, and they added a whole new button for that, replacing the share menu, which admittedly wasn't that great, but it was still kind of convenient compared to going through the home menu and broadcasting gameplay or whatnot. But now they're like rehauling that, and we don't know what it looks like. All we know is we're losing the share menu, and we're losing PS4 tournaments. But that's kind of it. We don't really know what else. So hopefully we see the PS5 UI any day now. Otherwise, it'll be a little unfortunate to have to wait until the launch, which I guess will be fine. It's a little over a month away anyway, and as long as the UI is not trash, or at least not worse than the PS4 UI, it should be fine. But I really would like to see it earlier than the console launch. And while we're on the topic, I would like to see how my PlayStation VR headset will work with the PS5. They said there's going to be a PlayStation camera adapter right there. That's my camera. And that the HD camera that's for PS5 will not work with that. So I would like to see when I can get that camera adapter, which is said no purchase required. So that's it. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully we see it any day now. And if you like this, make sure to give it a like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos like this if this was at all cool or acceptable or anything like that. And until then, I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Have a good one. Peace.